Picture this, you're out on the market looking for a hot hatch. There are 3 cars that will always feature on your list. Number 1 is the VW Golf. Number 2 is the Audi A3. And number 3, if you are trying to look a bit different, then you'll feature the Peugeot 308. But what if you want to stay on the French side and you want something that offers a bit of all those cars that I've mentioned, while there's something more, something extra that none of those 3 offers? Then I welcome you to the 2017 Renault Sport GT, aka the Megane. This is Mwema and this is Conversation. That is what you expect for this kind of review. Well, I'm here to give you those solid reviews. But the big question is, where is Mwema? Where is Mbugwa? Where is Fabian? Where is the rest of the active youthful team on Conversation? Well, they have changed their focus now. They have moved their entire energy to Conversation Raw. So if you're a lover of active content, if you're a lover of you understand, if you love of events, if you love of cars that really show character, then it's a high time you join Mwema. And because Mwema and the rest of the entire team are not joking, I think they have something. There's a snippet of what is coming up just after this, so that you know they're not coming to play.
Welcome to Fest, one of the biggest, greatest car shows that ever exists.
We live, breathe, bleed petrol. The sound of unrestricted pops and bangs coming out of an engine, oh, it just does something to you. So today we're going to dive into the Kenyan car culture scene. Is that a Supra?
Meanwhile, allow me to introduce to you one epic, beautiful machine. It's not Megane, the Megane you know, but it's nicknamed Megane. And this is the Renault Sport GT. Powering up the Renault Sport GT is an engine that was co-developed between Renault and Nissan, and that is the MR16. So in the Renault language they call it the M5 MT, but it's just an MR16. Quite interesting engine. I'll talk about the technology around the MR16 when we get to dive into the options that this car offers, alternative options in terms of engine options. But this engine is capable of pushing 205 HP paired to 280 Newton meters of torque. Now, those numbers look like they are not significant, but if you consider this car weighs 1,200 kilograms, then those numbers are something to really play with. Now, what I'm enjoying, come on. What I really enjoy about this car is, of course, the dual clutch transmission. This particular one is a 7-speed DCT by Renault. I don't know. There exists this thing about dual clutch transmission that it's quite interesting, especially on this particular one. The downshifts are quite interesting. You feel every gear that drops. Again, at low speeds, it's quite smooth, quite easy to shift into gears quite nicely. But something that I noticed is when you try to push it hard, sometimes, you see, you just felt it there, it kind of forgets whether it wants to shift upwards or it wants to shift downwards. It's a bit of hunting here and there. I think, to me, that boils down to the tune or wherever the transmission is running at the software. But this is something you'll feel when you're driving this car. But away from that, it's quite interesting. In fact, if you want to get rid of that problem, you just snap on your paddle shifters and then you are in full control. So you can downshift as you want. There you go. Put your feet down. And come on, let's go. Whew. She goes, and then let's talk about the driving experience, the driving feel of just driving this car. So one thing immediately you start driving this car is you notice the 4-control 4-wheel steering wheel system. When you take corners, like now I'm taking a corner, just quite easy. And Renault claims that at speeds of around 140 kilometers per hour, when you take a corner, the rear wheels will steer the opposite side. This car is a front wheel drive, okay, so it's not an all-wheel drive, but the 4 wheels can steer. That's a technological phenomenon that you find on the Renault. So at speeds under 140 kilometers, when you go left, the rear wheels will steer slightly on your right. But when you're doing speeds above 140, if you take a turn on your right, the rear wheels will also turn with you on the right. And that creates something quite interesting. Like, do you see how a crab dances? So the car feels like it's an oversteer, but it's a controlled kind of oversteer. It's not an oversteer that makes you feel you're losing control, but it's a funny twist on the car that makes you feel, okay, fine, there's something going on here that is not normal, but still the car is planted. The car still makes you feel that you are in control. So it's a very interesting. If you're carrying passengers at the rear, they will notice that and they'll be like, what is that is going on? It's actually the 4-control 4-wheel steering system on the Renault that makes that magic. And I can tell you without fear of contradiction that this car takes the corners like a king. Right now I'm doing around 140, and that is the brake. Just epic and interesting. And when you slam on your brake again, the hazard lights come on automatically to just notify the guys at the rear. And these are part of the safety features that you get when you buy this car. Something else I need to talk about on this particular car is the build quality. I feel that Renault did a good job. Right now, this car is quite enclosed. I don't get a lot of environmental noises coming from outside. I can feel the wheels, running on the road. The steering feel is quite awesome. I can feel the steering driving itself, or the wheels grinding themselves on the tarmac, and that feedback gets back on the wheels. And the more you drive faster, the more the steering wheel stiffens. Now, there's something stupid that goes on. I don't know what is wrong with the French guys. So you remember we had a review of the Peugeot 508, and on that review, no, it was not the 5, I think it was the 3008, the bigger version of the 2008. And anytime you turn, so the way you change your driving modes here, you have a dedicated button called Arrest Drive. So you click that and then you can snip through different driving modes. And the most powerful driving mode here is the Sport. And when I put her on Sport, the cluster changes into red. The tachometer is illuminated in big numbers. So it's actually telling you we are ready to go. But something else that Renault does is they introduce a noise through the speakers. Let me just step on it. Hear that? So actually what you're hearing is a noise that has been introduced. Okay, the engine sounds epic, but still they have done a bit of noise introduction through the speakers, and that fills the cabin. But it's not as dominant as what you get in the 3008. I think the 3008 was quite noisy. It was just quite annoying to even think about it and drive that car, especially when we put it in sport mode. But this one has been done in a very unique way, a very special way. For a normal person driving this car, you might not really feel that they've done an introduction of the engine noise or the turbo performance or the sound that you get from this car when it comes to sports mode. So nothing much going on. The build quality is awesome. I love this car. I love the way it feels. And it's a rev happy, quite rev happy. The engine wants to stay above 6.5 towards the red line, And that is the epicness of just driving this particular car. Enough chatter with the driving thrill. Let us look at the exterior of the Renault Sport GT and see, does it match up to its competition? How does the Renault Sport GT look on the exterior? One, the front fascia is quite aggressive with a big, humongous Renault logo that reminds you that Renault are not here to play. They're trying to make something sporty, something that will fit in on the young generation. The front fascia, very nice, full LED headlights with an LED daylight running strip just around it, and at night it looks quite beautiful and interesting to look at. The aggressive bumper again, just to make this car quite sporty, and it has some star things going on the grill. I don't know what they're trying to say. Are they trying to say Mercedes-Benz, come close to me? Anyway, that's what you get here. The GT logo to just remind you that these are performance spec of the Renault Megane. Again, something quite interesting that I want you to notice. Normally, we have an intercooler right at the front, but when it comes to this car, they have a side mounted intercooler with real vents that help on cooling the brakes, especially when you're pushing this car towards its limits. When it comes to the side profile, there's so many things you will see and notice between the Renault Sport GT and the Peugeot 308. Some similarities in terms of how it looks on the side profile. One notable key feature is you see the side mirrors, there's a dual tone thing going on, blue but on a silver side mirror with blinkers which are LED, just makes this car look nice at night. At the front, we have McPherson strut, and the rear we have a torsion beam suspension system that cuts across the entire rear subframe of the car. And just as I told you before, there's something special about this car that you'll not find on an Audi A3, a Golf TSI or GTI for that matter, or the Peugeot 308 is the system on the Renault Sport GT that they call 4Control. Again, four-wheel drive steering system, which is quite interesting, as I've already shown you. And just to finish up the side profile, I must mention the beautiful alloy rims, metallic grey, to just match up with the side mirrors. And I can tell you for a fact, if this guy is driving along the road, it gives you quite interesting and beautiful vibes to look at. Those wheels, they do for me. They make me enjoy what this car looks like from the exterior. One special thing, again, it's not big, but it's quite important for you to note, is the rear windows. These ones are what we call privacy windows. So Renault from the factory have made sure that the rear windows are blackened out so that you don't hassle yourself, tinting the rear windows. Maybe if you want to worry about the front, well, but if I own this car, trust me, I will not tint the front windows. I want people to see me while I nyama them with their Golf TSIs. Rolling all the way to the rear, a very nice and subtle spoiler. It's not shouting, it's just there. It makes the flow of the rear of this car quite beautiful to look at. Renault Sport and the GT badge to just remind you that these are sports version of the Megane. Now, one interesting feature that I really love, I wish all cars did make this, is the rear taillights. Hii ni mataa kwa boot, meaning if you open, part of the rear lights sticks on the boot, and some of them remain here. By the way, they have been joined together to just flow towards the center of the boot with a rear camera rightly placed in the middle of the Renault badge. Just makes this car look quite beautiful and attractive from the rear. Let's talk about practicality. Quite big and practical. So what you have here is 434 liters of boot space with the ability to have a full spare wheel tire hapo ndani. Quite rare for cars that we are buying right now. But one thing I'll give it to Peugeot 308 and this Renault Sport GT is the idea that they have made it possible to have a full spare wheel tire included in this car, and that for Africa, come on, it works for us. Something more stupid and useless, you have your star kinda grill going on at the rear with parking sensors. You have dual exhaust tips, but one of them is real, the other one is fake. I think they must be, the star have really made sense here. This is Mercedes-Benz behavior. See, on this platform, the Renault Sport GT, you only get two significant engine options. It's either 1600cc petrol turbocharged or a 1600cc diesel turbocharged. Now, this particular one is what Renault calls the M5 MT, but in collaboration with Nissan, this will be called on a Nissan, be it the Tiana, the Tida, and some variants of the Nissan X-Trail as well. This engine is called the MR16. And something quite special about this engine when it's being called the MR16, MR stands for under stressed. So ideally, Nissan claims and Renault that in the development of this engine, when this engine, the block was being bored is creating those holes that pistons run in, this engine is put under torque to just distort it and make it be under stress. And they only release that to come together when the head has already been bolted on top of the block. And that speaks on the reliability that this engine offers on any platform. On the Nissan platform, we will fight about the CVT because unlike Renault, who chose to pair this to a dual clutch transmission on this particular model of the car that I'm reviewing, this has the 7-speed DCT. You can also get it with a 6-speed manual or a 5-speed manual, but this particular one has a 7-speed DCT. Nissan, on the other hand, they decided to go with the Jatco CVT. Paired to the MR16, I think you know the results of what that cocktail entails. But on this platform, again, it's a fun car to drive. This particular engine churns out 205 HP and 280 Newton meters of torque. Carrying these 1,200 kgs of a car, I can tell you this engine is quite superb and interesting. Some of the notable features or technology that you'll find on this engine, apart from the under stress technology of build, is a twin variable valve timing system, which again, it's quite good to just make this car quite efficient in different speeds and different performance levels. And something again quite unique and special about this engine, the M5 MT, or what you call the MR16, is what Nissan and Renault calls the offset cylinder displacement, to just increase the fuel efficiency of this engine. And fuel efficiency, it does offer. Being 6'2", wink wink, it feels quite cramped up at the rear. This seat is stretched all the way to the back because I'm assuming there is a tall person like me seated at the front, so you will not feel a bit comfortable. You can see legroom yangu iko a bit compromised, but in terms of height, I think you'll do okay. But in terms of legroom, I think you'll suffer a little bit. But again, I'm assuming this is a car that you carry in people that want to enjoy the thrill of driving this car. I think the Golf will do better in terms of the legroom, but the Peugeot 308 and this particular car, I think they will go leg to leg or hand to hand or wall to wall, inclusive the Audi A3. I don't think you will get much different at the rear of this car. There's blue accents going on exactly from the exterior all the way to the interior. I have a very nice ambient lighting going on again in blue. You can change this to any preferred color that you want, but you have blue carbon fiber strips running on the rows of this car. Ai, hapo nimesema nini? But you have, acha nichukulie tu hapo. 1 2 3. You have carbon fiber, blue carbon fiber strip running on this plastic door. Okay, you have some bit of leather in the middle, but all of it is plastic. It's plastic that will last forever. You know that kind of plastic? The Toyota kind of plastic. Fine, let's talk about the seats. Child Isofix. Again, this is a car that you can carry in a young family of 1 or 2, a wife, husband, and 2 kids. This will be a perfect car to go out for drives and just enjoy the epic handling of the 4-control wheel drive system. In terms of practicality, 2 cup holders that are very tiny on the side, but there's one big in the middle. I presume this one is where you put the biggest jug, and then hapa chini unaweka, I don't know what they're doing with that, but Alcantara seats with blue stitchings. Again, blue on the, how do we call this? You know how we call this, seat belts, just making this car look quite interesting. Let's check out this car at the front because there are so interesting things that I want to talk to you about the front of this car in terms of what it offers in the interior. Settling at the front of the Renault Sport, and the French are not playing games. I think they have their own vibe of doing things, and to me this is something different. This is something I've not been in for a while. First are the seats, bucket seats with Alcantara again. The headrest is conjoined with the seat. That's what you get on a bucket seat. But there's something interesting on the headrest. So there is a flag, a checkered flag, which literally means a track. So I think they mean this car, you can comfortably take it to a track. Yes, you can, because the way this car handles, it's quite interesting. One of the most interesting things that I really need to talk about is what you get at the center of the dashboard. Of course, plastic going on. Again, it's brittle, hard plastic that will serve you for a very long time. I think they were borrowing a lot from Toyota. But let's talk about the infotainment system on the Renault Sport GT. Quite unique, quite different, something I've not seen quite often in any car. So, these are portrait design infotainment system with a multicolored screen that you can't tell whether it's colored, it's black and white, or whatever that's going on. But I must say it's quite interesting and quite touch sensitive. Very fast. You touch on it, inakupeleka teke teke. It doesn't waste a lot of time. It's there. Okay. Apple CarPlay enabled, Android Auto enabled, but you only access that using your cable. You have your auxiliary port there in case you want to connect to your phone or whatever music system that you're playing with on the infotainment system. Then you have a USB. The USB, you can load videos and you can play videos as well, and you can connect this thing to your phone again via Bluetooth and get all your settings going on. Now, something quite interesting. Something that I've seen on a Mercedes-Benz that I've seen here is you click on settings, you go to vehicle, and then there's something here called Take Care. So Take Care is a system that guarantees you the quality of air that you get inside this car. Wale wanalemekanga juu ya AC, unapumua vumbi, unapumua sijui whatever. So this car has the ability to check the quality of air that comes into the cabin. So it gives you kind of a safe vibe when you're breathing in and out. And conventional things, a multi-active steering control, which is it telescopic? Yeah, manually telescopic, but there you go. Again, for this budget that you're buying this car, you expect nothing more of that. Now, you expected we have plus and minus here. In volumes, no, you have R0. I don't know what these things do here because they actually don't do nothing. If you want to increase your volume or change how the infotainment system functions, is you have a big side knob on your right side. Again, unconventional because it's a French car. Most people expect to be here because of Japanese, but here you get it here. So you can do the volume up, volume down. You can change the modes, as you can see. And it's just weird. So it's changing. Then you can increase your volume. Let me copyright this to Chape. So basically you do that using this side. You have your paddle shifters that we are going to launch after this and just see how this car performs from 0 to 100. And just to wind up, just to confirm that this car, not only is it a car that is sporty oriented, is it a car that will give you, a really thrilling vibe when you drive this car, but it's also a car that offers quite interesting safety features. Number one, parking assist. So this car can actually park itself. I think there's something standard on cars that are coming in from 2016. Something else, you have the normal thing, driver assist features like lane departure, distance warning, active braking, blind spot alert, automatic high beam, so you can put your high beam on and when the car is approaching you, it automatically dims and takes you back to high beam when you're driving. So maneno ya kuweka high na low, siju kuchoma mtu kuchomana, hiyo maneno tulimalizana nayo from 2016 onwards. And when it comes to the driving modes, again, what these guys called multi-sense, because that is the system you use to select your driving modes. There's a dedicated button down here that you can just press and it can change from sport, neutral, passo or comfort, or else you can just do it using your touch screen, and still quite sensitive and quite fast when it comes to changing. And when you change the driving mode, you also get that change being reflected on the digital cluster control, and it looks interesting. It has very weird colors, both a blend of a man and a female, in case you just want to drive and enjoy this car. So this is a superb car. So the only thing that we are remaining to do is take this car on the road. At 20 kuongea mambo mob, we are going to launch this car and see how does it perform from 0 to 100. Does it conform with what Renault has set out to do? And that is make this car a competitive sports hatchback. So now it's time for us to do our favorite segment, which is 0 to 100. I have my draggy set up. Let me just record the screen. There we go. Screen is recording. I'm going to put her in sports mode. Yes, she's in sports mode. And the launch control in this particular car is quite easy. So they say you put your foot on your brake and put your feet on the accelerator all the way down, and then launch. Yeah, she does. See how many seconds? And we are done. Whew. See those downshifts? Let's see. Try one. What did we manage? 0 to 100 in 8.18 seconds. I didn't manage to slam on the brake so that we can just get the braking power from 100 to 0. So I'm going to take a second take, and then we are going to slam on the brakes and see how much time does it take to slow down the Renault Sport GT from 100 to 0. But right now, Renault claims that this car will accelerate from 0 to 100 in 7.3 seconds. So I'm pretty solid sure that the 8.18 0 to 100 time is within spec. We've only lost there like 90 microseconds. But let's do another take. Let me reset this one. Then we are going to do another take and just see. Then slam on the brake and see how much she brakes. So I'm going to put her in launch control again. There she goes. And 1, 2, 3 and go. There she goes. Yes! 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 And 100 and wow! She brakes hard. That's interesting. So let me see. Wow! Wow! The 0 to 100. So the 0 to 100 numbers we were a bit faster. So we did 8.13 seconds, and then braking from 100 to 0, we did it in 3.19 seconds. Quite epic. Quite epic. I love it. Let's do value for money and see what is the value proposition for you if you thought or decided to buy the Renault Sport GT. Why would I buy the Renault Sport GT? 3 unique special things. Number 1, of course, it has to be the 4-wheel steering control system that Renault call the 4Control. That is something epic to have on a car of a budget of around 2 million or slightly below million Kenya shillings. Something else that will make me buy this car is the idea that I'm not going to be a cliche. I'm going to stand out. This is a kind of a car that when you arrive with it on a place where most people are, you're going to motor shows, you're going to events, people will be asking you, what the hell is this? This is that kind of car. And if you carry them in this car and they feel the 4-wheel steering system, they'll be like, what's going on? So it's a car that has its own unique elements. And number 3, which is final, is a bit to do with reliability. We know the MR16, which is the M5 MT on this particular brand that you know, and that engine is pretty solid with awesome technologies paired to the 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Again, back in the days, just like the Golf, you still have a 7-speed dual clutch transmission, which is the DSG. Again, you get the same simulation on this particular car, so you're not missing out on the driving feel. I think the only car that loses out in terms of the driving shifts is the Peugeot 308, but on the Audi A3 and this particular car, again, top notch, you get DCT, and again that adds to the value proposition of why I will actually buy this car. So let's talk about value for money. How much will this car set you back? This car will set you back anything around 1.9 to 2 million Kenya shillings. In comparison to the Audi A3, which will set you back around 2.2 million Kenya shillings. That is if you choose to import via AUTOSELECT by CARNVERSATIONS. But if you choose to buy locally, it could go upwards of even 2.45 million Kenya shillings. The Golf TSI, which you guys have made your fundamental target anytime you mention a hot hatch. Again, that will set you back around the same figure, 2.3 all the way to 2.6 million Kenya shillings, depending on the spec and quality. And last is the Peugeot 30. I think in that category, this car is competing to its counterpart brother from the French market, and that is the Peugeot 30. So the Peugeot 308 and the Renault Sport GT, both will set you back around 2 million Kenya shillings. Will I buy the 308 over this one? No, the answer is obviously no. Why? Because I'm getting a 1600cc turbocharged engine, a legendary engine from Nissan. I'm not quite confident and familiar with what the Peugeot 308 is offering around the 1200cc and the 1600cc. But this engine, it's an engine that people know. It's an engine that people have worked on locally, and that gives me the confidence to consider the Renault Sport GT over the 308. I've been your host, Ibrahim Toloi, or you can call me Papa Skofu, and this has been the Thursday episode. On Sunday, we still have 2 special episodes for you. The Kanisa is back. I know you guys have not seen me for a while. I've been working on something special and epic. I'll be revealing it in due time. But just ask yourself, what if you had a problem with buying your car? What if the car you're buying has been an accident? What if, the car you're buying maybe has different car owners, or maybe it has hidden issues that you do not know? What do you do about it? Keep it locked on Conversation, because very soon I'm going to show you how you can go across those kind of hurdles. But again, on Sunday, an epic review of Kanisa and the 211 restoration Mercedes-Benz. I know you guys have not watched at least 2 Sundays of the restoration, and the reason is electronics. Plus, please, sijui ni kwa nini. If you haven't subscribed, YouTube is telling me like 60% of you guys are just watching. Sijui mnangoja nani akuje ndo msubscribe. I beseech you, please take a minute, take a second, hit the subscription button and put the notifications on, because from here onwards, it's pure epic content. I'll be taking charge of the main channel as the young tax take charge of Conversation Raw, and you guys are not ready for what is coming your way.